Welcome to the CCS and EasyFix Lunch and Learn. I'm Tony Brumchek, the beef specialist with Central Confinement, and I want to introduce Doug Goodal from EasyFix. Doug is someone we've been working with for several years, and he's helped us out with some pretty neat and intriguing facilities that we put together. And we've got for example, we just did an open house on a 625 head deep pit facility just north of our office here that we've got Doug's EasyFix rubber in there. And I'll just mention a little bit of a plug. If somebody is wanting to see actually a facility like that and the products that Doug offers, just give us a call anytime and we'll set up a tour to take you up there and take a look at it. So we work with Doug on a lot of different things from he'll talk about some of the new technology they're bringing into this, as well as the rubber. And then we're even looking at using his rubber in some beef processing facilities that we're putting together some things for, some projects for, as well as some dairy projects. So with that, Doug, I'll turn you over, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ginger, do you have any protocol for how you want people to ask questions today?
Yes, I will go ahead and say that. Thanks for bringing that up, Doug. If you have any questions at any time, we'll try and answer them as we see them come in. Use the chat on the Zoom meeting here and just ask any questions at any time that you're interested in, and we'll try and get them addressed for you.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you to CCS. To Tony's point, yeah, CCS is a great partner of EasyFix's. I'm happy to be working with them along with beef products, Slat rubber, and some new innovation designs today. We do quite a bit in the dairy world too, but we're not going to touch on that just because we want to keep it short and simple today. So welcome, and I hope I can provide some information about us and some products you might be interested in. A little bit behind EasyFix, we're a family company started in 1996. Michael Earls is the owner from Ireland, and they've grown from strength to strength over years. He actually created the first slat rubber by trying to pour rubber on his slats in Ireland. They've operated on shallow pits in Ireland for quite some time, and he's developed it to probably the highest best-selling product in the world today now. I'm Vice President of Business Development, so I oversee growth in North America. I am located out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where we have a small warehouse. And then we also carry quite a bit of supply in a third-party warehouse in Wisconsin. So one of the questions in today's world typically is, what's your supply like? Right now, we're really good on slat rubber, so that's a positive. Business has grown from strength to strength over time. This is our headquarters in Ireland, and you can see they've added a lot. You can see a lot of slat rubber sitting out there and different rubber products. We're in over 60 countries. 3 years ago, they were using a distributor in the United States, and they decided they needed more of a presence to be in the United States, and the distributor didn't want to have inventory. So that's when they incorporated in the United States and brought me on to take that to the next level. So let's talk a little bit about our product. When I go see people about slat rubber and I talk to them, typically I like to say, what's the most important thing for you? Probably the three most common answers I get are longevity. Well, obviously price too. Everybody has price, right? But longevity, cattle cleanliness, and traction. And so I think we provide the best of all of those worlds in several different ways. First of all, when you're looking at slat rubber, you should ask what it's made out of and what the tensile strength is. That's very important. We measure at an 8 tensile strength. We're a natural rubber. We're made in India. I'm not afraid to say that because that's where all the rubber trees are. We take real rubber, make it a chemical compound, vulcanize it. So those pieces of rubber that you see are all molded into one piece. So every individual small part of it is just as strong as the rest of it. We're also unique in the fact that if you notice on here, every other hole is 100% open. And we only cover 2 gangs at a time with a little bit of slope in the middle, if you can see where my pointer is. The advantage to that is you're going to get manure and urine floating off to the sides because there's just enough of a slope, and then it has a river or a valley or a hole to go to. I compare it to Iowa land versus South Dakota land. One's flat, one has hills, one has water setting, one doesn't. So cleanliness of animals, by far and away, we will win out on that because of our opening and because of our slope design. We also have the longest warranty. It's a 5-year, 100% warranty. And when it comes to traction, don't be fooled by deep grip. A lot of times deep grip can actually collect manure, especially in cold weather, and it will freeze up quicker. Because of our openings and because of the way our grip is designed, we typically will freeze 10 to 15 degrees later than a 6 by 12 foot sheet. So you're long term also, when you're looking at replacing, and in 30 years you're going to replace rubber, it will wear out. You're going to be replacing 8 square feet at a time versus 24 square feet at a time. So I think there's some advantages to that as well. Okay, traction getting up. I see typically, I've been in 100 sheds, probably maybe more, with watching cattle get up. I love to observe them, and I see a lot of cattle actually, when they're getting up, they're using these cracks to get up and not necessarily the traction on the top, digging their hooves in. We've reinforced that side, and maybe when you saw this seminar, you saw that we talked about our renewed or newer product and improved. That's been done for about 5 years now. I'm happy to say we have not had a warranty on this new design slat piece of rubber in 5 years, not a single piece. As I mentioned, the reinforced design, here's a better picture of it here. On the outsides, where you tend to get the cattle digging their feet in, is where it's reinforced. As a high grip profile, we have a little bit of cushion underneath here, and you're going to see in future slides some insulation benefits to that. Our rubber install connecting pieces are connected to the piece of rubber, embedded into it, so you don't have separate pieces. And again, zero installation hardware except for a hammer. So you're going to get extra grip underneath the cattle by using slat rubber. A lot of people say, why should I? And we'll get a chance to witness a producer in Minnesota. He raises about 6,000 head of cattle. I also have a nutritionist that oversees 500,000 cattle. And both those gentlemen say that you get 0.2 to 0.25 pounds of gain per day per animal with a rubber product in on slats. So it's just about a necessity. As far as lameness, I would say you're going to see your lameness go down from 17% down to 1%. The guy in the video says it the best. It's not a luxury. It's definitely a necessity. And typically, this is a great way to finish off a barn like CCS makes, because you are totally controlling the environment that the cattle are growing in. So every day is a growing day. And we do replacement too. So if you have something that needs to be replaced, I'm going to, I hope, play this video now.
Grant Bidford from Laverne, Minnesota. I farm with my brother Eric, his family, and he handles the crop side of things, and I am in charge of the livestock. We have feedlot capacity for about 6,500 head, about an even split between bed pack buildings and slatted floor buildings. We built first barn in 2012, and about 3 years later we followed with a second barn. When we built the second barn, we had made a decision that we needed to look at putting rubber in. And like everybody else, we were hesitant because of cost until we started to find out all the different companies selling rubber, trying to pick, was that the right decision? We actually bought 4 pens of a competitor rubber. We have noticed cattle were dirtier on those mats. There's not as much opening in the mats for the manure to pass through. Definitely in the wintertime, the cattle are a little wetter and dirtier, and we get more of a buildup during a cold spell on those mats compared to the EasyFix mats. And it's a part of that cleanliness factor. Our bedding barns compared to our slat barns, we'll see a % difference in dressing percentage on the slats. We have noticed performance advantage to that rubber over the non-rubbered slat. It's been a solid 0.2 day performance difference. So, you know, that number alone, if you figure 350-day occupancy at 0.2 is 70 pounds times your market price. You know, it doesn't take very long to pay for the rubber, let alone your increase in reducing your slows and injury issues on those cattle. And I think this is another factor that shows how comfortable they are moving around in these facilities. It's as close to dirt and grass from a cushion and that we can offer the cattle. And I guess that somewhat proved to us that we had made the right decision the first time around to spend a little bit premium money for the EasyFix product. So we chose to cover the last pens in the first barn with that product a year ago in 2017. It's definitely a need to put rubber, in my opinion, on these slatted facilities that are becoming popular. It's just a question of which company. We made the right decision to go with EasyFix.
All right, definitely reinforces a lot of the information that I brought up already. You know, he talked about the winter and strides, and let's just briefly touch on that. When you look at the thermal conductivity of ice and concrete, they're just about the same. Wood helps, but look at how much warmer you're going to have your cattle when they're laying on slat rubber. And you really see that if you have a monoslope and you get some sun to the south in the winter. That black rubber of ours or anybody's will really heat up the floor good. The next thing is he talked about the gate. This is something I probably talk about more in the dairy world than I do in the beef world, but nonetheless, it's similar. Your gait or your stride with a livestock with cattle in the pasture versus on rubber is very similar. 31 inches, 31 and a half versus 30. But you put them on bare concrete and now all of a sudden you're down to 22 inches, which means you can move cattle a lot faster and you're going to have a lot less lameness when you put them on rubber. Now, one of the things that I'm really excited about talking about is some new manure technology system that we're bringing, I guess, sort of bringing to the United States. This has been in existence in Europe in their smaller, shallower pits for about 15 years, and specifically this product has been. The technology behind this is putting aeration in new pits. We don't have a retrofit plan or availability yet, but we pump compressed air into each of these H nozzles, and it releases with the benefits of being higher nutrients, less agitation, if not zero agitation, decreased ammonia, and decreased methane. So let me talk a little bit more about that. What happens is if you look at why we use compressed air, if you have 2 feet of manure versus 12 feet of manure, you're going to get quite a bit of a different back pressure on that. So we use compressed air, put each spot at an equal amount, because if you overbubble manure, it can agitate it too much and actually release too many of the gases in the air that you don't want. And if you underbubble it, it's not going to do its job. So we put oxygen, they flow through the valves, creates a bubble. It basically takes the dry matter up to the top, oxygenates it, and then it falls back down to the bottom. The science behind it, if you will, I tell people probably the simplest thing is we take it from a really high level of anaerobic state and reduce that somewhat so that your microbes aren't burning up your energy and releasing the gases, the toxic gases. Some people will say that based on some of the test results that you can even see a 2 to 3 year payoff just from the nutrients. I have data that I can share that's from some tests in Europe. We're working diligently, because this is a new product in the States, to get some manure testing and such done on the pits that we have here. We can do it for beef, we can do it for dairy and for pigs. We can do it for lagoons or not, or in pits. The longer that the manure sits, the better we're going to help you out. Quite an interesting new concept. So what does it do? Some of the benefits. Basically, you're going to have, you're going to reduce ammonia by about 51%. Your hydrogen sulfide should be better at pumping, so it's safer for both animals and farmers. Your increase in nutrient values. No need for agitation, or limited. I'm going to say in Europe, they haven't had to agitate yet. We have one barn going right now that didn't get installed until late December, early January. So because of the freezing, we had to shut that down, but it is now up and going. And with about 3 feet of manure, it's in a full liquid state with no crust. And you can see the bubbling happening when you turn the system on. Typically, the system runs at night. It runs off 2 compressors. They work together, and it's very low energy. And then again, with using fertilizer, which keeps going up and up, we're going to also reduce the carbon footprint. And who knows, are we going to be charged for ammonia or methane release someday in this country? It wouldn't surprise me if we are. This sort of summarizes a little bit of my overview before. So you've got a compressor that's activated by a digital clock. I'll compare it, if you've got a lawn sprinkling system, it sort of goes in zones, if you would. Air is fed into the primary rotary valve, and then that feeds the rest of the valves. They're connected to manifolds. And I'm going to go back and see if I can show you a manifold on there. The manifolds are these little flaps on the very end, and that keeps the manure from going back in. It's a self-sealing manifold. So they're connected to the manifolds, and we fix everything to the floor. We check it once, we check it twice, and there's plenty of fixings, stainless steel fixings, that we keep those to the floor on. There's only one port live at any time. And then the pneumatic distribution of the rotary valve opens up to the next port, runs through the process in the night, and then starts all over the next night. And you can see here, this is a good European person. This you can, if you want, this is out on our website, I believe, or you could Google it out on YouTube. But he's had 2 tanks of our slurry system. 2 tanks, one has it, one doesn't. And he's been able to compare slurries. He's saving on fertilizer. And on top of that, he says it's a lot safer and he doesn't have to agitate it. That's from the farmer's mouth, not me. Paddy Pendergrast, good Irish name. So in summary, I've exposed you to one product today that has been out for a long time. I believe we're the leaders in the industry, both from a quality standpoint, a cleanliness standpoint, and our Slat rubber. This slurry management system, manure management system is very new. We're going to see in the next year or two what the agitation really does. It seems to be a hot topic. The trade shows that I've been at and down when I was at the symposium, there was a lot of talk about that with the CCS people that were there and the customers. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for somebody.
So Doug, can I ask you a question here? And I want to tell everybody that has joined us, we've got the chat active. So if you want to pull up the chat feature on the meeting here today and just ask any questions that you might have. One question that I want to ask, or just something to discuss, as you talk about the possibility, and you're going to research more with the diets and stuff that we use over here in the States, that there's a good chance that we won't need to agitate any of this. The recent facility we had to open house for that you were involved with, that we had your rubber on that slatted barn, there was 5 pens and they each 5 had a separate pit so that you could have a separate pit to agitate and pump and take it out. If this new technology works the way that it is, shouldn't there be a possibility that we can save some expense on the construction as we add the expense of this system, save some expense by removing some pit walls, because we could probably just have the whole pit to where we could pump it in one spot. Is that?
That's very accurate, and it's a great comment, great feedback. Again, when you look at these sites in Europe, they're smaller, they're less shallow, but they are more of a grass diet. So, you know, it's my feeling, and most of our feelings, Tony has been working with me and showing several customers this, that we think our diets should be more supportive of less agitation than what theirs are. But yes, the one that we have up and going right now is a 550 head barn, and that has no pit wall in it. I don't encourage it, and I'm not going to encourage it until we've got some proof out there, obviously, but that is the direction that we totally expect to go.
So even with that, Doug, even if you were to have a couple pits in there in case you had to agitate them, after you get done with it the first time and maybe 2-3 years down the road, typically if somebody was putting in a deep pit, they're going to add a foot or a foot and a half of water because you just can't agitate it without diluting it a little bit. We should be able to increase our amount of storage because we're not going to have to do that if this system keeps it agitated. Is that correct?
Well, to a degree, and we have found out that even with this system, especially when the first year, we're still encouraging people to put some water in there. Number one, that first year, the concrete sucks so much of the moisture out of the manure that we don't want a caked up base getting started. And it gives our system the first year to get it up and going and moving a little bit. But that being said, yeah, to your point, this should keep it in enough of a liquid viscous state that we can avoid that. And the guys that I've talked to, if this works, and obviously for those of you out that are listening to this or listening to the recording when it comes out, you know, picture the amount of labor and fuel and machinery that it would save you if you can drop in and pump. That's the last benefit that I want to convince everybody that I'm totally sold on yet. The others just in by itself from the safety standpoint, reducing gases and especially the increase in the nitrogen, NP and K, it's going to pay for itself. Good question. Are there any other ones out there?
Other questions, or anybody here have any questions for Doug on the products that he showed us today? Well, again, want to thank everybody for joining us. And just to if there was a few people that started late, we will email out a copy of the recording of this at a later date, or probably here within the next few days. And I just want to go back up and say what I said before. And we do have a question there, Doug, is what size compressors do you typically use for this?
I was worried I was going to get a technical question like that. I have an install. One of my guys here does the install. Let me get you back out the specs for all that and amp draw, things like that. They're pretty small, and there's very little maintenance, but I don't have the answer to that right off the top of my head because I'm not as technically savvy as my guy that puts them in.
So like for a 304-foot barn like we did up there north of here, are we going to need a couple different stations of compressors most likely?
Yeah, you'll have a couple different stations of compressors, and then we work along with the engineers ahead of time to make sure that we have the appropriate pit access, but it's not real invasive on the hoses that go down into the pit. Most of the branching and bulk of the piping happens underneath the pit ceiling or floor. The most important thing for the compressors is to keep them out of dust. We'll put them, you can mount them up high. Some people want to put them 7 foot high. Some people put them outside on the north wall and put them in a doghouse. But what we have found is keep them away from the dusty areas. Don't get them near your where you're loading up feed or something like that.
Yeah, question here. So you're saying you put a few different bank stations of them spread along the building, possibly if it's a larger setup?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And we can either feed from each end the hoses, and then we intrude on the pit wall dividers, or we run the hoses down the structure and take it from the north side or the south side and just go in the pits there. That's probably the best for longer facilities. On a shorter facility, it's best to put them on the ends and run them in from the end. The one that we did with no pit wall, only 550 head, that worked great to have it just run from one end.
So Doug, with you using compressors, would you tell us the difference? I know there's another competitor system out there that does not use compressors. Can you give us the advantages of the compressor type system?
Yeah. Sorry about that, Tony. I went down that road a little bit and didn't talk about it much. The advantage is several things. First of all, you keep the constant pressure, whether the back pressure from the manure is 2 foot high or 12 foot high. So in that case, if you have a blower system, you will overblow when the manure's too low. In the middle, you'll be just right. When the manure's up high, you're not going to have enough in there. Aeration happening. We do 15 pounds of pressure max, but it's always constant. And then also, if you look at the way we use our system, where it's one H valve and one section at a time with the shutdown, you get equal pressure at the end of each line. Whereas if you put an inline system with a bunch of hoses going from one to the end, you're going to get closer to the compressor or blower. You're going to get a lot of volume, and then clear to the end of that line, you're not going to get as much. So long and short of it, we have a much more accurate and efficient delivery of air to the point where it needs to be throughout the entire pit. That's the summary.
Hey, Doug. Yeah, Elliot here. Another question. With regards to that on the end, didn't see in the pictures real close, I guess. What type of diffuser do you have on the end of that line for releasing the air?
Let me see if I can go back, and I can't name the exact type it is, I can get that information out as well. Why don't I do that? That's the key design behind this too, between that and the compressed air that made us fall in love with this company and buy it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no, I'd be curious to see that. I mean, I've worked with some of these systems in other water type setups, lakes and ponds and different things. And so yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Absolutely. Apologize, I don't have that off the top of my head. Good questions, everybody.
Well, we want to thank everybody for showing up and joining us for this. And like I was saying before, we will send out to everybody that had signed up for a copy of the video recording of this. And if you ever have any questions, get on our website at Central Confinement, cencon.com, and reach out to us by chat, and we can sure help you with it. And if you would like to tour some of our facilities that have the EasyFix rubber on them, we could sure line that up as well. So again, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks CCS for inviting me today. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody learned something.